Hi there. Welcome to A Creative Affair, a collection of conversations exploring creativity through the art of photography and other creative passions. I'm Brie. I'm a lifelong creative and I'm currently exploring the art of nature and landscape photography. It is also my privilege as a life coach to help other creatives achieve their dreams with less stress and tons more fun. And guess what? I love a good road trip. I love watching the scenery change. I love the freedom that I have to explore and kind of go wherever I want. Oh, what's down that road? And then I go. And I also really love the opportunity I have to think and contemplate. And even if I'm with someone else, we're not usually talking the whole time, listening to music and kind of sometimes doing our own thing. So it's a really great opportunity for me to just kind of leave behind some of the stresses of the world and really focus inward. So, and I also think a road trip is a great time to listen to podcasts like this one. I'm just saying.
And we should listen to it. I love listening to podcasts as I have that spare time. I'm Len, and I'm a visual artist living here in Sydney. I run an innovative photography school that teaches creatives about creativity. I'm an art teacher and I practice printmaking, etching, lithography, drawing, watercolour painting, photography. I spend so much of my life trying to understand creativity and to develop it and explore what it is. One way of doing that is having meaningful conversations with others, listening to them, and reading. And that's what this podcast is so much about, is having wonderful conversations about it to explore, to develop this understanding. And so we hope that this podcast helps you as well. Now, Brie was just talking about having that time to think and contemplate. I just walked across the bottom of Tasmania with my son over 11 days and over 100 kilometres of walking. And we have these long moments of silence, and I mean days of them, and where we go really inward. And doing that, I found that incredibly healing and such a beautiful place to be. So just wandering around and having time to contemplate, that's also very, very special for me. Anyway, today we want to talk about a tool to help this contemplation. And that tool is journaling. Journaling. Do you journal, Brie?
Oh my goodness. I think you're talking to the wrong person.
Okay.
No,
so,
I don't journal like in the traditional sense. I'll have to, okay, so full disclosure, I did do that when I was younger and had a little experience. I'm not going to talk about it, but it's and I could do it now if I wanted to, but I really haven't done very much of it. And I'm talking about journaling, like writing down your daily happenings and all of those things. But so that's kind of for me what journaling in the traditional sense is, and but I do other things. So how about you? We'll talk about those in a minute. So how about you, Len?
I don't know if I journal in the traditional sense either, but I do use the practice of making notes, having books that I write in and use extensively throughout my whole life. And it's a habit that I have never been able to put down, that some people would call journaling, but doesn't fit into that stereotypical idea that you are talking about. And I wouldn't really call it journaling either. I'd call it that I keep a sketchbook. I have notebooks. I have a visual diary, and I use and explore that to help understand my creative process, to contemplate things, to put ideas and to draw and make notes.
When did you start? Like, how long have you been doing this?
I think it really started at art school properly. Before that, it was more just drawings, and I'd never really had much confidence in my writing. But at art school, carrying around a sketchbook with a pen became a habit. And it was also trendy, you know. We'd go down to the coffee shop and you'd sit in the coffee shop drinking our soy lattes and our echinacea teas, and we'd sit there having our gluten-free cakes, drawing people in the coffee shop. And it was a badge of honour as an artist at an art school to carry around a sketchbook. And one of the things that I learnt quickly was that you're in class and someone says an idea and you write it in your sketchbook. And it became not only a sketchbook, but it became a book of ideas and notes, and it kept expanding. So one of our teachers said to us, I want you to record your dreams for the term. And so the sketchbook became the place to put our dreams into because it was there. It was the thing that we were carrying around to use to record life visually with our drawings, but also in the written form. So it took over from, that the book that we had an exercise book at school that we put our notes in. My sketchbook became part of that notebook to just join in with my whole life. So into it went drawings, ideas, dreams, thoughts, shopping lists, anything that came along goes into that one book that I carry along. So, Brie, it's become a lifelong habit, a lifelong habit.
It's really beautiful. And I love the idea of recording your dreams. I'm almost afraid of that. like if you said for a month, I'm going to record all my dreams, A, you would have to remember them, but B, you might be looking at dreams that you might be kind of afraid of, So that would be really interesting. How many of these do you have?
I've got shelves. I have got shelves and shelves of them, and I keep buying them. And there's a collection. I actually am using about 10 at the moment, and they're different sizes. So I've got tiny ones for when I'm bushwalking. I've got one in my camera bag permanently. I have one in my travel pack. There's one beside the bed. There's a few here next to my workspace where I'm working. So they vary in size, colour, and place where they live.
And I feel this almost turned into a little interview with you, Len, about how you do this. But I think maybe I want to say, if I'm curious, maybe a lot of our listeners are too. Do you, if you have them in so many places, are you dating? Are you dating, making a date on any of these? Or are these just like you're making notes and whichever one happens to be closest to you when it comes to you?
Okay. That's a good question. And dating is interesting because I date my dreams, and I do still record my dreams, and it's become a habit as well. And to learn to remember your dreams, Brie, you just say to yourself every night before you go to sleep, I'm going to remember my dreams. And you make an affirmation of that over and over. And then in the morning, you keep your eyes closed when you first wake up, and you mentally walk back through your dream. And then when you do open your eyes, you go straight to your diary or your journal or whatever it is, your sketchbook, and write it down. And if you start doing that, you'll find that you'll write down, you'll start having a tiny bit of memory and you'll write that down. And as you keep practicing and you keep telling yourself that you can remember, you can open that up quite effectively till you can remember the whole dream. But I personally get scared by my dreams because our dreams are often our fears, aren't they? And we're expressing them. So I go through periods where I sleep terribly because I don't want to actually go into the dream state, and I'm scared of them. So dreams as a whole, that's a huge kettle of fish to explore down.
Is that a whole episode? Just kidding. I don't know. But it is interesting too.
I think it should be an episode.
I mean, I think it is interesting to record those things, and because I think sometimes ideas will come to us, and even I know you've told me about an experience that you had, and where you were like, I dreamed this thing, and it's about a collaboration, and you need to collaborate with me. So I think, and maybe it wasn't like we have to do this, but I think sometimes our dreams can help push us in ways that creatively anyway, that we wouldn't normally. And so having a record of that, because dreams are so fleeting that they just kind of, leave. And if we don't record them, then I find myself later like, I had the most vivid dream, but I can't remember. I get little snippets, so I can imagine that keeping a small record or, keeping a little bit of a journal could be really, really helpful. Is it raining now there? Is that the big rain?
It is. It's raining. I hope it doesn't interfere with the recording there.
You can hear it, but we're just gonna say it's nature, just like some of your birds outside. I mean, sometimes we get crazy winds here, so remember, folks, we don't have fancy studios, but
no,
so you get the nature,
and you can hear it on the tin roof.
Yeah,
and it is easing up there. But with our dreams, I learned something incredibly important from Freeman Patterson, and he's an incredible photographer. Very, very inspiring about creativity, and one I recommend people to look up. And I've been lucky enough to study with him in multiple different instances in New Zealand and in South Africa. He says to me, Len, our subconscious and our conscious are often about a year behind each other. So our dreams, which is a direct access to our subconscious, often for me personally, I don't understand the meaning of my dreams for about a year or two afterwards. And when I read back my dream diary from 2 years ago, I can go, oh, well, that's what was happening in my life. No wonder I was having all those dreams, and it was helping me sort all those things out. And my consciousness has actually caught up to my subconscious. So that's an interesting idea about dreams and their meanings. And for me, having that time period actually helps me understand them.
Amazing. I really,
it is.
I think it's super, super fascinating. And, in doing some reading about this topic, because I was curious I'm always curious what other people have to say. But I found a couple of little quotes here. And I'm sorry, I can't tell you. It's just from a website, but I just wrote it down. But they were talking about some different, famous people and where they're, what they said about their journals. And this person says Frida Kahlo's journal doubled as her sketchbook, which is similar to you, Len. And she says, I don't paint dreams or nightmares, Kahlo wrote. I paint my own reality. And so this is what she said in her own journal. I just think it's so interesting that she's like using her journal to kind of express to herself like how she's painting her own reality. And then another interesting thing from Marilyn. Yeah.
She's reflecting on herself to try and using the written tool of a sketchbook or of writing and drawing to understand who she is. And I think this is an incredibly important part. So we need to shift the idea of what journaling is and actually look at it as a means to unpacking and sorting out who we are and what our art is about for us, where it's going, what we're doing, all those sort of things. And what a beautiful quote that is. It's about finding out that truth about who she is, I think, and that's quite a special one.
I love that. I love that explanation, and maybe it's something that I want to do more of. I mean, I do some of this, but not in a deeper sense. And I think probably, Len, because you've been doing this kind of work for so long, that you really understand what it does for you and how it benefits you, and how you can see who you are, in reflection of just, watching your past self, grow and change and become, right? So
very much so. And it's an unfolding, it's an unpacking, it's a trying to understand. But it's also a record keeping and an exploration. So it's not a record of my life. I don't sit down ever and say, today I did this. And I don't ever sit there and say, tomorrow I'm going to do that. I might write notes. So that idea that Frida Kahlo has there, I might actually write that quote into my book. And so that the very process of hand writing it down into the book is a way of rote learning it, and it goes into our minds, and it gets reinforced, and it becomes a longer term memory through this practice of writing it down. So I have no clear guidelines as to what I put into my these books. I just put things that are interesting into them that I want to explore in my mind.
In talking about when my kids were younger and learning about how people learn differently, we're visual learners, we're auditory, we may be, I forget all of the different ways that we can learn.
Kinesthetics, another one.
Yeah, I was going to say doing. Like that's the tactile, right?
Yes, so, learning by doing.
And what's interesting is sometimes when I'm writing, I'm visually seeing it. That actually helps solidify. But it's that kinesthetic, like actually, it's almost like inputting. If you're writing down this quote, it's like inputting it into your body, because it's almost like you wrote it down, but you don't have to look at it again necessarily.
Exactly. You don't have to ever read it again.
Right.
Because writing it down makes the memory. There's a really great example of that, isn't there, Brie? We write a shopping list, we leave it at home, and we have more chance of remembering what was on the shopping list because we wrote it down and we took the time to think about it at the time of recording, and we actually don't need the list, although, someone with my memory, I definitely need it these days. But the act of writing it reinforces what it means.
Yeah. And I love that. I've written down so many things before that I don't have to go back. I almost never go back and reread just notes that I've written, because I can remember what they're about, and I can bring to my remembrance the ones that are really important. If I'm, let's say we're talking here during this conversation, I might remember writing something down that's really important. And I mean, it could be like 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And I'm able to bring that back because I wrote it down. And I actually think we can type. I think that's a fabulous way to journal. You can do that if you want to. I used to use pen and paper, and I can, maybe this is a time to talk about how kind of I do it, but, I actually have been using my iPad for years, and I just have a notes app, and it's super fun because I can put pictures. I can input pictures in there really easily, and I can write all over them. And there's so many, I can change colors and write big and write small and, twist things and, I can do all kinds of stuff because it's digital, and I'm still using a pencil and doing the tactile recording of it. And
so you are still using a pencil when you use your iPad.
Yeah,
Isn't that beautiful, Brie?
I can't not do it. I've tried the typing. So sometimes I do type a little note or make a note on my phone and then input it into, maybe a little idea or something that I'm collecting. But I have to write it. I have to. There's just something about it. And I just have to tactile handwritten. I have to.
Well, the research backs that up, that by handwriting it out, it goes into our memory better than when we type it out. And it's much more effective doing it by longhand and using the pencil on the pad. I also keep a digital diary. I use a notebook sort of software, and I clip web pages and all sorts of things into there. But it's nowhere near as effective for me personally because I don't have a pencil and I don't write into it. And I tend to use it for clipping and lists and specific notes that I do need to refer to. And I use my handwritten ones where I'm much more freer in my own mind, to self-express in there without fear of judgment. So I think one of the things that worried me when I started journaling, and I actually have my very first diary as a kid, and it was today I did this, and it started with the date, and I started censoring myself, worrying about who was going to read it. And yet I was doing it for me. And I found this was an interesting, fascinating phenomenon that I was scared to write certain things in there. Anyway, that's long since gone, that when I put it into a written diary, I express myself fully without fear, and I don't sit there and reread them. It's not something that I build into my workflow or way that I work. It's a way of working on what's going on in my mind right now with what's happening. One of the things that you asked is, how do you organise it all and sort it out? I do have particular books that are set aside for very specific purposes. So I have one that I take to workshops, and I always put notes from workshops into that particular book. I have one that I've kept educational games in, and I make notes. And so whenever I'm at an opportunity like a conference, or I'm attending someone else's training, or I'm observing someone teaching, that was my career for many years, training teachers, I would actually make notes of people's activities and games into one book. So when I actually had to go and teach, I just grab that book and take it with me, and I suddenly have a bag of tricks that I can dive into to use as a resource. So some of them are set aside for that, but the rest of them, I always personally have a one with blank pages. They can't have lines on them, and I'm really particular about that because I need to be able to draw and at the same time, or not have any ordering on there. My hand needs to go all over the place, and sometimes I'll write, one word in really big letters right across the whole page, and then that's the whole page. And other times I'll draw a diagram, and that's the whole page. And other times I'll write really tiny, and there's huge amounts of notes in there. So I do have systems that I've developed over that time.
That's funny. We're complete opposite. I need like little graph dots, or not the graph paper, but could just be little dots. But I like a line. I like to be able to, because what I'm doing is really just letting all my thoughts out of my head when I'm doing this. And it's very, sometimes it's just all of it, and sometimes it's prescriptive, but I want to see those things. And also I like to doodle with the lines. So
Well, isn't that true? It's different for each of us. We actually have to figure out what works for us as individuals, and there's no one way, is there?
No, and I think, you talked about saving some things online. We've both talked about handwriting, but I just don't think, for sure that's a great way to do it because it does help you like kinesthetically, but there's nothing wrong with keeping notes on your phone, and I think the point of this conversation or even like my husband, he keeps all his journal stuff on an Evernote document. He's very organized. He has things like dated and just organized into folders, but that doesn't, the great thing is like it really, we're using our personalities, right? Tapping into who you are and how you want to express yourself, and then just using that medium to be able to do it is really, really important.
So one of the good questions to ask ourselves and to talk about is how can journaling actually help our creativity? And I think that's a really important question to ask before we dive into some other theories and what other practices are going on out there. It's so powerful in exploring our thoughts, isn't it? As a way of documenting. I think exploring is the best word for me. It's like a whiteboard where I'm pushing things around, or I've got things and I can move them and group them together and sort out my thoughts in a place that I do with a pencil. Do you have any ideas of how it can help us?
Well, I love what you said a few moments ago, that it kind of you talked about writing without judgment, and I think high on one of the ways it helps us is it just, if we allow ourselves to just write, create, use these journals as a way to quiet that judgment and just, take away that inner censor, that idea. Okay, so when I'm talking to you right now, Len, I'm halfway censoring myself. Like when we're having conversation, we're not really saying every single thing that pops into our minds, and when we write it down, it's just ourselves and the writing, and we don't have to censor ourselves at all. We don't have to have any judgment about it. Sometimes it's just interesting to look and see what's coming out of us.
That's actually suggested by people that do that, is that you don't actually reread your journaling, and you don't let anyone else read it, so that you don't have to censor yourself. And I think that's such a special thing to have as a bit of a practice in there, that it's your little private place to explore and to do things. I know my brain goes so fast that my speaking and writing is so slow in comparison. And yes, there's a huge censorship that goes on continually. And I'm one of those people that goes quiet and thinks about what they're going to say before they open their mouth. And I'm always censoring myself. And here's a place that I don't have to.
Yeah, and I love the idea of not censoring myself, because maybe some of you are like me, and for a long time I was like a little bit afraid what was going to come out. And I think in some ways we kind of are a little bit. And I think when we can just allow all the thoughts, the amazing, the terrible, the ugly, the judgmental, whatever it is, if we can just let it all out, all of our crazy things that we're thinking and see them, maybe we're not so scared of them after all. And maybe and we're talking about how it helps our creativity, but maybe in exploring that, some really amazing new ideas or thoughts come out of it too, because we aren't censoring ourselves.
By learning not to censor ourselves in this private manner, I think that is a skill that we can bring into our art, because how often when we're creating an artwork, we're saying, and we've got that inner dialogue going on, that's not going to work. I've seen that before. We actually censor our own work with justifications and fears. And if we can practice being more truthful in that way, then there's benefits in our art as well, isn't there?
Anytime we can see what's happening internally, like actually visually see it, I think we build that relationship with ourselves, and then I think it comes out in other ways. And I think that's part of this whole exploration, this journaling, is to help figure out who we are and to build our relationship with our own self. Because I've noticed that as I have done that and I don't know about this for you, Len, I'm doing all the hand motions, that my relationship with my artistic passions is actually it's strengthened, because I know more about what I want. I know more about who I am. And that's such an amazing place to be. It's like your little, we by the way said we were going to flirt more, but I think it's a really intimate moment with yourself, don't you think?
Oh, it definitely is. And I was giggling as you were saying that, because I think my whole journey as an artist is one of self-discovery. It's not so much a discovery, an outward one. It's very much an inward journey. And the more in touch I become of who I am and my feelings and my thoughts and the things that excite me and the things that repulse me and who I am as a person, my creativity becomes better. And my artwork becomes better, and that's the journey for me, is learning about who I am in this particular process.
Yes, I love that. And that goes right into one of our other points about how journaling can help us, is being able to, not only can journaling can help us find our own voices, but it can help us trust that voice as well. So one of the ways that I journal is, and this is public, but I feel like it's my journal. It's me saying ideas and expressing things to all of you. Is I have a blog, and anyone who's done a blog usually it's an expression of thoughts that you have that you just want to share. And so for me, it's kind of it's been an interesting journey to write a blog, and I'm working on doing it more, because I love the feeling that I get of being able to express myself in my own voice and then read it back to myself and go, yes, that's exactly who I am, and I'm learning to trust what comes out of my mind because I'm writing it down. Does that make sense to you, Len?
It definitely does. And I think social media is another way of journaling as well, and many people use Instagram and those sort of Facebook as a way of journaling, doing it publicly. I noticed that when I blogged a newsletter, and at one point I managed to get up doing a post every day, and I wrote and I wrote and I wrote, and I kept putting my images up and my artworks, and my written journaling dropped off because I was doing it in another forum, in a different format. And I was choosing to do it publicly to learn to trust my own voice. And I was at that particular point in my life where I needed to express it publicly and to gain confidence in that inner voice that was going on there. So I think this idea of speaking and expressing ourselves through words and images and recording things doesn't just have to be in a blank book. It can be in so many different ways and places as a thought to use for this growth. Yeah,
I agree, and I think testing it out can be really fun to in helping us find our own voice, recording it in our private moments, and then putting it out there and testing to see how we feel about it, when we share these things publicly. Because here's the thing. Most of us, and I would say 99.9999%, are doing some sort of artwork that we share with the world. So, and that's what we're discussing here, is using that journaling to help influence what we're putting out there for the rest of the world to enjoy. So, what else? What else you got? How else does this help us, Len?
Well, it helps us sort through our ideas, doesn't it? It becomes a sorting process, an ordering process, a way of systematically sorting it out. We can, for me, so many ideas can be so complex, and the moment that I can turn them into a diagram becomes an incredibly important learning moment for me. And when I can synthesize it down into something quite as a simple diagram, suddenly it makes so much more sense. And I think that's part of the way that my mind works, is that I love working with models of how things work and how the world works. And when I actually have solid models, I can see how that things fit into them, and also the fluid nature of them, the fluid nature that they aren't boxes to put people in or to put things in, but they're ways to explore our preferences by going into areas that maybe we avoid or not work with.
I love. Go ahead.
In my art, it's the same. So by exploring through words and diagrams and images, I can understand my artwork better. So I find myself in my visual diary, my journal, whatever, my sketchbook. I'll actually draw my photographs in there, just rough sketches, and then I'll put little arrows in there and go, well, this is happening over here and that's happening there, and then I thought this when I took it, and then this means this, and it becomes a mind map of one of my artworks as I'm exploring what's going on in there. And so often there's this explosion of ideas of where to go next.
That's so interesting to me.
Absolutely, just pour out into there.
And I find too, I have a couple of points, but to add to that, when we start writing ideas and then not censoring them, right, and just allowing ideas to just come out of us, however they're going to come out of us, and we honor them by writing them down, I feel like we get even more of them, and I just think they grow, and that's kind of an amazing place to be for our own creativity. That it kind of fosters even more of it by being able to write down and record so many ideas. And I'm not talking about ideas where they're like in a complete sentence. Like, could just be one word. It could be a little image. It could be, like you said, like these models. And I don't know where I was. Oh, I love the idea. I love the practice of just writing down ideas, and just letting your brain come up with as many ideas as you can come up with. My husband actually calls it idea storming. And I think that's a really fun way of of journaling is just to let that all out. But sometimes when I'm writing them and it's very directed, I'm writing a word. I'm writing, I'm doing the same thing as you are. Len, I would love to see you with an iPad, like, and putting your images like in the iPad and then writing them, writing writing on top of it. And, I think you like the handwritten part, but it would be interesting to see what you do digitally.
Well, part of my love for the handwriting is that I was a drawer and I love drawing, and a pencil still to this day is incredibly important to me, and it's a tool that is an extension of my hand and my thought process. I like this idea of idea storming. I think it probably, and it does for me, it has to have similar rules to brainstorming, where one of the things that doesn't happen in my journal is a negative critique of the ideas. I just throw them down, and what happens is the ones that surface to being more important get expanded and kept getting moved, and the ones that aren't so good just get left behind. And I'm not critiquing them as I'm putting them down, because that critique actually stops that idea formation. I was wondering, is that the same for you and your husband there?
Yeah, I agree. You have to be able to just lay everything out there and recognize. In fact, he says, the crazier, the better. Oh, no, I know he uses the word absurd. The more absurd, the better, because this is when we really, and being able to give ourselves the freedom not to put our ideas into like some sort of box that we think they need to be in, and just letting it all flow out of us. And what's funny is as we start doing a few, then we start opening up more. And we do a few more, and then we have this idea like, okay, I'm just going to get crazy here. And then you can just allow, I think there's like a little bit of a warm up. You can just allow the floodgates to just open. I also love this principle, and I think it's a mindset. It's a specific mindset going into doing this kind of thing, knowing that you're not going to make a judgment about any of it, and that everything you put down could be awesome.
Very much
really,
so.
Right? It came out of you. Why wouldn't it be awesome? But we get to make the judgment later about maybe what we want to work on, maybe what we love so much. Maybe there's something that that we write down that immediately resonates with us, and we're like, oh my gosh, I have to do I have to do this thing. And I want to say, like, you just shook your head because I know this has happened to you and it's happened to me before, right? That's understanding your inner voice and connecting with yourself. And this is all tied together.
Yeah, definitely is. And it's a very old idea. I'm suddenly thinking of Edward de Bono and, the 6 thinking hats and all these ideas on creativity and on brainstorming. This critique has to be separated out from the process, and it has to have space. And I know as a practitioner, as an artist, I also have to create that space in my procedures and the way that I work. I build that space in so that ideas have time to mature before I start getting into that's not going to work phase. Or I don't like that one phase. I have to leave that space for them. So I think that's a very, very special point.
I think it's important. Yeah, I think so. And I think it's important to say, you know what, maybe these ideas, one of the things that we have, in our notes is like the journaling lets you nurture ideas that might not be ready. This says harvesting, but you might not be ready to implement or use. And sometimes we write things down and we think it's interesting, but we're not quite ready for it. And over time, we might be. And so we could come back to it, or we could do a similar exercise, or we might find ourselves sketching and journaling and the idea pops into our minds again, right? And then here we are remembering something that we had written down, and it's time. So that is such a huge benefit of doing this for our own creativity, because we never know where these ideas, when they're going to pop back up, when they're going to be ready. And I don't know if we necessarily, want to force that, right?
I'd like to just at this point introduce Julia Cameron's work, The Artist's Way. And
yes.
For me, it was a seminal moment discovering this particular book. I think it's in its 40th edition or something. It's been published for the last 30 or 40 years so many times, and you can find it in any thrift shop anywhere, really, because it's it's so popular. But anyway, she introduced the idea of morning pages, and The Artist's Way is an incredibly important book for artists about the creative process. And she suggests that every morning you get up, and the very first thing that you during your day is you sit down and you write 3 pages of longhand about absolutely anything that comes to your mind. And you just get it out in longhand into a journal. You never read it again. You allow yourself to be reflective in the past. You can write stuff about the very, very present. You could write stuff about the future. You could write your dreams. You could write anything. It's totally free form. It can go wherever it can be. You could write a shopping list. You could write a list of hates. You could write a list of loves. You just follow whatever it is that's happening there. And you don't ever read it. You don't ever show anyone. And you just keep at it. You keep working at it on a daily basis.
So you don't go back and reread this?
You don't read them.
Because I haven't read The Artist's Way yet, but so you don't reread it. That's interesting.
You don't reread them. You just
why? Why not?
Why? Because what she's discovered, and Julia actually is a writer. She's written so many books, and really her advice was originally for writers, but us visual art creatives have picked it up and go, oh, this is actually really exciting as well. What it becomes a clearinghouse. It allows us to get rid of shit out of our lives through the paper and throw it away. It allows us to express possibilities into the paper and allow them to be explored in our mind. So by doing it every morning, and she says it's incredibly important not to do it at night, because when you do it at night, it becomes, well, today I did this. And it's a reflective thing. Whereas in the morning, it's a clearing, it's a getting rid of, it's an expression. And we've tried this in my workshops over periods of time, and obviously it's not for everyone, but some people who've picked this up and actually gone with it have found that their mind is clearer during the day and more in touch with who they are as a person, that their creativity flows more freely. And once they get going and some of that crap gets out and leaves us, the ideas start bubbling to the surface and start appearing in the morning pages and become, just in the same way that we're talking about our notes in our iPad and in my sketchbook, become brainstorming sessions once we've cleared that space in our lives.
Okay, well, I think this is a great time for me to tell you what I do then.
Oh, please do, Brie. Please do.
Because
Open
I
up and share.
I've hinted at it, but I haven't mentioned exactly what I do. And I do something very similar to this, actually. And it's not, I look at it again, though, sometimes, depending. So, and I have found, and when you were talking about, and by the way, I haven't seen this before. So I love sometimes we just save things for when we're doing the podcast, because I feel like I want it to be fresh and I want to talk about it in the moment. So I love what you said about not doing it at night, because at the end of my day, I'm like, I'm tired. I don't want to write. I just want to read a book, or, I've already thought about all the things. And so in the morning when I wake up, I have like all of the thoughts swirling around in my head about so many things. And so I have found, and I would like to say I do this every day, but I do this on a mostly daily basis. I even have it in my calendar to do. 7 a.m. I really just like to grab a drink and sit, not alcohol, because I actually don't drink, but a little morning beverage, and sit on my sofa in the kind of half light and do this. And so and really this has become part of like my coaching practice for myself. I call it a thought download. And this is really, I just spend 5 minutes and just put in, and it could be like, I'm wondering what I'm thinking about this particular thing. And I let all of my thoughts about that thing out. But really my favorite is when I just put all the things that are swirling around in my brain out. And it's so interesting to see what is happening inside there and to be able to put it down. And then, going back to like the not having judgment, looking at it and going, okay, I really like who I am. I can decide after I write it all down if it's ugly or whatever, and then I get to decide if I want to keep it, right? So this is what you're talking about, right? You don't read it. Your ideas about what you put down can change about it, right? And I find that even just writing things down, it really expands my mind in a way that I've never had before, because all of a sudden I'm seeing visually what's been going on in my mind. Maybe sometimes ideas pop up and I write those on another thing, or I make a line and I write those down, ideas for today, or ideas, or whatever it is, I got to put that on that note, right? And so it doesn't have to be super prescriptive, but I totally agree with Julia Cameron in this, being able to put the things that are in your mind down on paper, and wherever you're going to write them. You could type them out. It's totally fine. But I like that she says longhand. I do think there's value in that. And just writing it all out and seeing. And then there's actually other work that I do with it if I want to. If I have some sort of thought that comes out that I'm like, oh, I didn't know I was thinking that. And I wonder how that's affecting what's going on in my life. And then I can do some work around that. That's where I would want to go back and reread. But it is a really amazing practice. It really is amazingly helpful. Do you do this, Len?
I do. And I found the morning was also the time that I did my, when I was blogging and, had a daily newsletter, I did it first thing. And that was also a clearing thing, because I didn't have a structure other than I'm going to do one at every day. And I found I was writing stuff that just came from all over the place. And sometimes I would find the photograph first and work from it. And other times the words would come first and I'd have to find the photograph to come with it. And it actually helped me focus for the rest of my day as well. But I haven't got the discipline to sit with my journal every morning. I'm much more random, and it floats all over the place. And but I have to have it with me virtually everywhere I go. So it's something that I carry and have at close hand.
Well, I carry my iPad, so there you go. It's always with me.
I am.
But I think, can I make one more point about this? And I want to say, if you're struggling creatively. And I think sometimes this happens to us when we're struggling to create. Maybe I'm relating this to like landscape photography when I'm out, or I know I'm going to go out. And so much of the time we have so many thoughts in our brains just swirling around. I think this can be a really helpful tool for helping clear all that out. And so if you find yourself with extra stuff going on in your head that's impacting maybe your creative process, then maybe try this and see if it helps clear or quiet some of the noise. And maybe there are some thoughts that you might want to pay attention to, right? That maybe that's like, oh, I do want to pay attention to that, but you can come back to it because you have it written down. You can come back to it and address it if you want to, right? But you can keep creating, like having that all down. Then you can hopefully, it's just a way you could possibly keep creating without, what was I going to say? Without necessarily wondering like what's going on. I have all these thoughts going on in my head and I can't do my work. And this is a way to kind of quiet those things.
Howard Gardner's a psychologist, and he reckons that there's 3 practices that are common to creative people, and they are: 1, daily reflection; 2, the ability to leverage their strengths; and 3, a way to refine their failures. And what journaling and this daily practice is actually doing is allowing us to deal with our failures and to concentrate on our strengths. And we're doing it in a regular manner. And here's just one of those tools to do that through the process of writing. And I think personally, I find it an incredibly powerful one, and one that, as I said earlier, it's become a lifelong practice to do and to continue with.
I love that. In fact, sometimes I don't even write all the thoughts going down in my head. I'm like, today I'm feeling really crappy and I'm feeling like a failure, speaking of failure. And I just want to write down all of the ways that I'm awesome. So, and like, no joke, can we maybe use our journals as a way to remind ourselves how amazing we are and how far we've come and what we've learned, and, some of the successes that we've had, and really maybe realize that, the stuff we think is a failure maybe is just a stepping stone to doing more really amazing stuff, right? So
what's that lovely exercise where you write, what's it called after you've died, and
your obituary?
you write your own obituary and about all the wonderful achievements that you've had, and what a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. And one of the things that I enjoy in conversations when I'm sharing myself to other people, when someone says to me, "Len, I've got no idea how you managed to fit it all in." And that, to me, is one of those lifting moments where I remind myself, oh, my God, I've actually achieved an incredible lot of things. And yet I have these depressive moments where I'm hooked on a tiny failure. And they get me down and get in my way and create this wave of non-productivity. Like I'm stuck. You're totally trapped in your thoughts, and I end up in a circular thinking, and I'm trapped there, and I have a very unproductive day. But when I stop and remind myself of all these wonderful things and actually deal with all of those negative thoughts, then I have the most incredible productive days. So to me, this becomes a fantastic way to look at our strengths and weaknesses through daily reflection. It's just incredible.
And that is one of the ways that journaling can help us. It can help us, like, when we're being deliberate about it and stopping and using that moment that we're doing it as a like just slowing down and reflecting, it gives us the opportunity to really think about some things rather than spinning around and whatever, whatever, woe is me that we have going on, being able to just stop and reflect. Not just about failure, but it could be about all kinds of different things, right? It could be about any topic that we're thinking about or contemplating, but taking the time to do some writing and write out those things that we have going on. It will really help us in our processing and because we're reflecting on it.
So that act of slowing down. That's what makes us become more attuned to us and to our subject that we're working with, our processes, with our creative processes, by slowing down and becoming more present, this is a tool to help us do. We create better art. The more we understand ourselves, the better the art. The more we slow down and the more present we are in right now, the better we do. So I really love, in our notes here, we've got journaling can be a part of a creative ritual. And I think Julia mentions this in terms of having it as a daily thing. You're talking about it as a daily ritual. I'm talking about it as a lifelong habit. Of having them around and using them and using it as a tool. I think having rituals in our life is incredibly important as artists, and ones that center us and help us understand who we are. They're the powerful ones that we really need to make into something that happens regularly.
If our listeners journal in any way, and maybe if you have a creative way that you do it, we'd also love to hear about it. And I think that's what's fascinating to us. We want to hear about these things.
It's all about knowing ourselves, isn't it? It really is. It's understanding who we are, very much so. I've got a little quote here by Lao Tse-tung. I don't know how to pronounce his name, sorry. Those who know others are wise. Those who know themselves are enlightened. And I think that gets to the very basis, the bottom of being creative. It's about knowing ourselves and how we work. And I hope this has been an inspiring episode for you to start to explore with this notion of a visual diary, a sketchbook, a notepad, an iPad, some software, or a journal.
I just carry a little note card. I pull one out, and it's not a big book, and I can just write down a couple little things I'm thinking about. Easy.
When I was just starting my walk across the bottom of Tasmania with my son, I couldn't. I hadn't managed to find my journal before I left, and I was in a panic because I need a very tiny one to carry and a small pen because every ounce counts when it comes to bushwalking for such a long time. And when I was down there, I went to 5 shops to try and find the one that I needed to carry for that week, just so I could have my journal with me. So that's how important of a ritual it is to me that I needed to have one to actually start that particular journey.
We want to understand more about ourselves and more about the way we think and more about how we can become who we are so we can do the creative work that we want to do. I think it's really amazing. Len, we didn't do enough flirting.
Yeah, we didn't today. It will come again. I think maybe it comes in waves like our creativity. Maybe it's one of those things.
Well, I will give the audience a tiny teaser. So, if you don't know, we're doing this podcast in seasons. And so there will be I think 15 episodes in the first season. We don't number them, but it probably come out as numbers anyway. But we are already in the midst of planning season 2, and I'm really excited. This is going to be a lot more flirting.
Yes, we should. It's an affair. We keep forgetting it's an affair.
And we
because
might
we get
bring
so excited about the conversation, and that's what fairs are about, aren't they? It's having such magical conversations and stopping and concentrating on something that's special for ourselves.
Yeah, agreed. So fun. Well, Len, thank you so much for another wonderful conversation about creativity, having our affair. I always come away from these feeling really inspired. Like now I'm like, ooh, what can I add to my journaling practice that I'm not doing now? And I kind of like that idea. And how can we all journal in our creative ways and also use it intentionally to inspire our own creativity. So anyway, we're just wondering how you do that. And also don't forget to email us. You can keep the conversation and your creative passion flowing by engaging in conversation with others and with us. You can email us at create@acreativeaffairpodcast.com. We'd love to hear from you, how you use journaling in your creative process, or not, but how you use journaling would be really amazing. We'd love to hear about it. And also, I love being a coach for creatives like you. In my 10-week Dream It, Do It program, I help creatives identify and overcome obstacles to become happier artists, grow more satisfied with their work, and live the creative life of their dreams. So you can go to my website, creativemindscoach.com, and sign up for a free discovery call with me. Look, it'll be fun. I love talking to people, really seriously. So if you're wondering what this is all about, just go on to my website and schedule a call with me. And I would love to chat with you about what you've been dreaming of. We can make it happen.
Well, Brie, another amazing creative conversation. Like we have so many, and there's so many more to have. And I too leave lifted, and I learned so much from you, from our listeners, and from the act of just sitting down and gathering my thoughts and reflecting on my own practice, and even the practice of others. And I think this is a great example of doing that, and that journaling actually helps us do that. How often do we sit down to a podcast and take notes? What a wonderful idea. Anyway, I hope you give creating a visual diary and playing with journaling a try, and see what happens if you're not already, or reconsider how you're doing it and extend it in a different way. I've just actually only just yesterday posted out another issue of Len's Journal, and I was amazed because I felt it was our best issue yet. And I keep thinking that every time I post one out, we've managed to improve and do something better than the one before. Anyway, it's a quarterly limited edition, high-quality collection of creative art that I curate from all around the world, and the works are in series, and it's absolutely stunning. So if you're interested, you can have a look, and you can subscribe at lensjournal.com. As always, links to everything are in our show notes, or you can visit us at a creativeaffairpodcast.com. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe and follow us in your favourite podcast app, and probably it's a great idea to like the episodes, and we'd so love to hear from you if you're finding inspiration from us. You can follow us on Instagram at a creative affair _podcast. So, well, Brie, until next time, my gorgeous lover and wonderful affair person. I can't wait to our next affair and the chance to get together and to talk something that we both love about so much, and that's creativity with you. So have fun. I hope you journal lots. I hope you create lots, and I hope you share lots. And I know that I will. And so for now, it's time to say goodbye.
Oh, goodbye, Len. Until next time.